Ladies and gentlemen, hello, and welcome to a very special episode of Sherm in the Booth. My name is Sherm. You guys are some true Chicagoans for coming out in January. It's snowing outside, it's freezing, and you're at the fucking club at 1 a.m.
Boys with the bass, yeah, boys, bass.
Who am I talking to right now? You're famous.
Free food, free drinks, music, girls. Let's go.
Do you like it? Cool. If you don't, goodbye.
I'm missing the most important part.
Boys with the bass, yeah.
We should throw like a crazy bar mitzvah party.
This is crazy. Send me stems. I finished it.
What's up, guys? How's everyone doing?
Just wait, you know it kicks in like 3 to 5 seconds afterward.
Yo, what's up, everyone, and welcome back to another brand new episode of Sherm in the Booth. I'm, of course, your host, Sherm, and today is Wednesday, June 15th, 2022, and this is episode 210. Wow, we are already in mid-June, but you know what? It's time to keep the heat up because we have a scorching hot legend on for episode 210, the one and only option4. I am truly honored to have him on the show, and we had such a great time during this interview. In episode 210, we got it all in. It started by talking about his journey into house music. Brennan is a homegrown Coloradan and has been cool since day one. He fell in love with music early on in life and went to his first rave in his late teens, and needless to say, he was hooked. He hustled a day job for a while until he cannonballed it in the music industry and got involved on all sides of the business. Today, he's now sitting on an impressive discography, runs HotBOI Records, and is a major player in the Colorado scene. He's the first person to tell you how fortunate he's been, but it's been an amazing journey nonetheless. Of course, he talked about the option4 discography. He started releasing music in 2012 and has since put out some of the most unique and original music I've ever heard. We talked about his relationship with Nervous Records and Club Sweat, both legendary labels, and got the full backstory on tracks like Big Grin with Born Dirty on HotBOI and Dance Around with Worthy on Nervous Records. I loved running through his tracks. We had to get into HotBOI Records. option4 launched a label that was set to do things differently and do it in an engaging and inclusive way. From the merch to the shows to the music, you know it's HotBOI when you see it, hear it, and feel it. He's had artists like Kyle Watson, Steve Darko, Max Chapman, Bot, Kevin Knapp, and so much more on the label. But don't forget the famous house track Word by Walker and Royce Vanessa that also calls HotBOI home. So much coming soon. I knew before chatting with him that he's a legend for many reasons, but hearing his unfiltered truth on his journey made me genuinely appreciate the impact he's made on many levels. When you hear someone say they were born for this, think of option4 because this guy just gets it. Thank you so much for taking the time to come on the show, my friend, and I can't wait to meet you in person soon. Let's get into it right now so you guys can hear his story for yourselves. This is episode 210 with option4. Ladies and gentlemen, hello, and welcome to Sherm in the motherfucking booth. I'm going to add in motherfucking because I got the coolest motherfucker on the other side of the screen right now. Brennan, aka option4. It is my absolute pleasure to have you on the show, man. How are you?
I'm really good, man. Thanks for having me tonight. I'm sorry for being late earlier.
That's all right, man. You're doing big things out in Denver. I've known you for a long time on the music front. You are like such an icon in many different ways. You're a very unique producer. You're an incredible DJ. Like you said, you've done events in Chicago and you've been DJing here for a long time. When was the first time you actually played in Chicago? Do you remember?
Oh, man. Well, there was a party called Point and Chicken.
Yeah, bro. Dom and Phi in Orville.
Yeah, and those boys had me play that party once on a Monday night, and that was like the craziest thing that ever happened to me in my life. I feel like
right?
The wildest party. So that was probably 10, 11 years ago or so. It was a long time ago. It was like the first time I played in Chicago.
Wow.
There was also so it was a long time ago, but yeah, that it's been, not to date myself, but yeah, it's been a minute.
At Evil Olive, right?
Yeah, over at Evil Olive, Martin Mendoza. I mean, there's so many legends in the Chicago nightlife game. I feel like they're just doing stuff for a long time. So
I'm so glad you brought that up. I've had all three of them on the podcast before. They're just tastemakers here, and They've continued to evolve too. I mean, they're all such creative people, and I'm so glad you played a porn and chicken party. That shit is literally legendary here.
Yeah, it was like, I still can't believe, like, oh man, I don't know. Yeah.
I know. Yeah. Things we can't even disclose. I know. I've been there before. You're like, what the fuck is going on here?
I'm playing music, but there's sparks flying off this crotch right now into the flames.
Oh yeah. Dicks, ass, tits, baby, every piece of the body. It's fucking, there's literally porn and chicken going on.
It was yeah, wild times. But yeah, I've been playing Chicago now for a long time. So yeah, just a lot of good memories in Chicago.
Awesome, brother. Well, Chicago loves you, man. We're gonna get your full story today. I'm super pumped about that. I always like to start the interview off with a special question. And I came across something you're known by in my research process, a house music warrior. I love that. I love that. I think I might know why, but what does that mean to you exactly?
Oh man, I just was I think a lot of it was just more, that was like this thing that my boy in the UK kind of coined, and it was just, a lot of it was just because I was just doing everything at once. It was wasn't just being a producer or being a DJ or being a promoter or being an organizer or a talent buyer. It was just like a record label owner. It was like everything. So just exhausting everybody, just running like a warrior, I guess, just grinding in every facet. So that's where that kind of came from.
For sure, man. You truly are a warrior, and you've had your hands in a lot of pots over the years. And we have so much to cover today. I want to start at the beginning though. Where are you originally from? I know you're based in Denver. Were you born there?
No, I was born in a small town. I was born in Colorado Springs, like an hour outside of Denver.
Yeah.
And then I grew up in San Francisco. So I moved when I was a baby, or like a kid. Okay. I was like 4 years old, moved to San Francisco, and then kind of grew up there. My formative years were in the Bay, and moved back to Colorado. And then, yeah, got my, went to my first rave in Colorado, I went to like Rave on the Rocks for my first time. I think I was like 17 or 16 or something like that.
Wow.
Chemical Brothers and Fatboy Slim. At that point, it was a wrap. I was ready to rip from there on out. I was in love with the culture and the music, and never slowed down since.
Let's fucking go, man. Did you have friends that got you into it though before then? I mean, what was it like for you when music first started coming into your life?
Well, Colorado Springs is really reclusive.
Isn't it a military town?
It's a military town, and it's really like culture in Colorado Springs is really hard to grow because the people that live there are always moving, right? People are there for 3 years and they're gone, 3 years and they're gone. Like the majority of the population, it's like 60% of the population of Colorado Springs is like military or something. It's
wow.
And I might be exaggerating that, but I just like, that whenever you have that much of a turnover of population, it's really hard for things to kind of grow and sustain and move on to future generations if everybody's just always gone. So it was kind of tough to discover electronic music, especially back then. There wasn't like what we have now. You don't have streaming services just feeding you music. So it was like pretty difficult to find back then. But it was obviously worth the search and worth the endeavor. And we have some really legendary clubs here in Colorado, in Denver especially, that have been really kind of like the forefront of bringing a lot of like the big European talent. Like, I mean, back when I was like 19 years old, like Carl Cox had a residency at the church.
What?
Oh yeah, it was like Tiesto had a residency at the church. Cascade.
That's amazing.
Cascade had a residency at Vinyl. That's where they all got their start before the Beatport thing blew up and things escalated even more. Like the owner of the clubs which in the wildest world I book at and work now in that capacity is like, the owner basically, I mean, you could pretty much credit him for a large part of the music scene in America, really. Like he was one of those, he was running around with Dennis Rodman, and he was like, man, I'm at this club now, and I'm at Crowbar, and we got to get this Carl guy to Denver. And, I mean,
whoa.
It was like, all those guys got their residencies like in Denver before they really started to go,
Shit.
It's wild how much history, especially at the church, and Vinyl, how much history were there at those nightclubs that were putting in 1,500 people on a Thursday night for somebody like Tiesto when they were still relatively small, especially on a national scale now. So
what was that guy's name?
Regis Christo. He's the owner, still is the owner. But it's just like, he's my director, my boss right now. But it's just like pretty fascinating the amount of history that came from Colorado when you look at the whole broader spectrum of electronic music. People always think of like New York or the coasts, or, they think of Chicago for the legendary parties and the house music that came out of Chicago.
Yeah.
But Denver definitely contributed things as far as, especially on the commercial side of things, of where, Beatport, the home of Beatport, came from Denver, and those are the people that were the talent buyers at the clubs that I talent buy for now, so putting that shit out there into the world, and now having like a rating system where you have a top track and a top track, and you've got the Beatport 100, and basically all of that stemmed from Denver. And so when you think of like the impact that like Colorado's had on like dance music in America, especially, it's pretty underrated.
Definitely it is, bro, for sure, man. This is a lesson for me. I didn't know Beatport was founded in Denver. That's incredible. I didn't know the influence that this guy had, obviously. I didn't know Vinyl and Church had been there for that long, too. That's awesome.
30 years. Yeah, 26 years at the church. Celebrated.
That's a long fucking time, man. Like, the oldest club here is like Spy Bar and Smart Bar, and that might be even a little bit older. That's incredible.
And those are amazing clubs, by the way, as well.
Yes, they are.
Those places, my whole heart.
Institutions, though, is what these places are, man. That's incredible.
Yeah, so it's like for me, and kind of growing up in Colorado, I was able to have access to some of that stuff at an early age. I saw Carl Cox for the first time when I was 18. At the church on Thursday, just my mind blowing.
Yeah, dude.
We've had some, really legendary promoters in Denver kind of pave the way for everything to get bigger and bigger and bigger. So it's like part of the reason I think that the scene in Colorado is so strong, and how many tickets that, we sell, or how many people come out to shows on any given night of the week, here in Colorado.
Wow, that's so special. I mean, I can't even imagine how awesome it is for you to have seen that scene growing, right? And now you literally have been a part of the infrastructure and where it's at now. I mean, I was going to say, honestly, like, the Denver music scene, house music scene, is like, it's global now, man. Like, everybody knows Denver. Like, it's such a great city, obviously, for what it is, sports teams and the outdoors. But like, there's a huge music culture there, obviously, with Red Rocks too. So that's fucking awesome.
Yeah, we're very, very fortunate, man. It's crazy. I think just alone, even just like what I book, I think I probably book, I don't know, anywhere from 300 to 500 house music shows, techno shows, or whatever a year in Denver. Jesus. So, and they're all sustained really well. All the venues are doing good, and people just really like the music, and that kind of goes hand in hand, I think, with weed as well. But
for sure, man.
When I kind of came onto the scene in Denver like 10 years ago or so, that I was able to kind of contribute that voice and started kind of growing that sound again. And obviously timing and everything spiraled to what it was, and then everything got real big, and now it's like, it's fun every weekend. So it's it's definitely a full-time party in Colorado.
For sure, man. It's good people out there too. Did you, like, after you went to the Carl Cox show, I mean, did you have a moment where you really wanted to get involved in the industry and become more than just a fan?
No, not at all. I just love the music, and I love going to the parties. Then my life kind of got took a turn where I had to go make money, and so I went and traveled for work. And my dad, he's a composer. He wrote music for like movies and stuff. So I've been around a studio my whole life, essentially. But it was kind of like when I was on the road, I would bring my little MIDI keyboard and my laptop and my little hard drives and stuff, and I would work on music, and I'd put out some of the shittiest music of all time on MySpace, to be fair. And it was like one of these weird things that had kind of happened where I would get the music where I could, but especially like in the South, and especially at that time, scene was super far behind. So it was really hard to go to, like, you didn't have like house music parties in New Orleans at all. Like, they had a lot of like trance and kind of like EDM and dubstep and just kind of like a lot of the commercial stuff, but not a lot of like, especially when I was living in New Orleans, for example, not really a scene for that at all. Right. And so I was pretty disconnected, but I would still write and produce and put records out on the internet, and it just kind of, one of these days, this dude hit me up who was like the crate digger. His name was DJ Chemistry, and he was a crate digger in New Orleans that he sussed DJ AM's crates.
Wow.
DJ AM hired him because I mean, New Orleans has amazing vinyl collections, amazing vinyl stores, like just amazing like music scene in general. So his job basically at the time was to go find records for him. And he had heard this record that I had done on MySpace and reached out to me because I was in New Orleans. So I gave him the record, and that record did pretty well on MySpace. I had like one record kind of get a lot of attention at the time. I think I had like 30 or 40,000 plays or something like that, which on MySpace at the time meant that 1,000 people or so had that shit. Whatever. So, it was like one of those things where I was like, oh man, people actually, when you're writing, the part of the problem of being a producer, or at least when you're starting out, especially back then, because there wasn't a tremendous amount of producers, there weren't a lot of people, the barrier to entry to make a studio and have the software and pay the money to be able to make the music was so unattainable for so long.
Physical barrier, right? Literally physical barrier.
So much money. I mean, what you can do on Ableton now would have cost you $100,000 10 years ago. Seriously. It's out of control how fast like the technology's kind of taken over, which is great because now these kids that are 14 are making banger rap records.
I know. We're here feeling bad about ourselves.
They're sitting there in math class, like trying to act like they're doing homework on Ableton, just like putting out bangers. And like, it's a pretty interesting situation. So, for me back then, everything was, very, much harder. Like I was still, the amount of money that I had in the studio I had capabilities with, was pretty limited, especially back then. So, it ended up being one of these things where I had one record do really well. And then I had somebody want the record and it was like a bigger name. And then another bigger name wanted the record and they got very big. And I'd never gone to like a music festival before, but my friend had invited me to go to Ultra in like 2007 or some shit. And 2006 or something, I don't know.
Fuck yeah.
And I was like, cool, I'm gonna go to Ultra. I never heard of it before. Let's go to the music festival. Let's go. And I look at the lineup, and those motherfuckers that were like hitting me up for my record on MySpace were at the top of the lineup. And I was just like, well, if they're big enough and they're successful enough, then maybe my music's good enough. I can do this for real too. So wow, it kind of like inspired me to start working harder and making more music. And then one day I just quit my corporate job and I was like, you know what? Only way it's ever going to happen is if I get a little residency. I'm going to move back home to Denver because my family, they still are in Colorado Springs, so I could be closer to them. Mm-hmm. I was like, I'm going to quit my job. I got a little bit of money in the bank. I had like 10 grand or something. I was like, I'm going to come to Denver and I'm going to be a DJ. I'm going to be a producer. I'm making records starting tomorrow, waking up at 9 a.m., getting a little Starbucks. I'm a producer now, right? So I made about $100 a week for the first 6 months of my life as a producer and found out that wasn't very sustainable.
Yeah.
It was I had a little residency. And then that's when I was like, well, if I can figure out a way of throwing parties to sustain the income, then, I'll be able to not only throw the parties that I want to throw and book the shows that I want to book and bring the music that I want to bring to Denver, but at the same time, like be able to subsidize the amount of time I'd be spending in the studio. Wow. So that's kind of like how it all kind of shook down. I just kind of left the corporate world and I was like, I'm a DJ now. And I'm one of a million that it worked out for. I know so many people that I just got very, very, very fortunate and very lucky that it did. And I was able to, pay my bills, because that's the biggest struggle with anything. The biggest struggle is not, it's not, are you good enough? It's, can you last long enough to figure out a way to make a living at it? That's all it is. At what point do you give up the dream and go back to the day job? And so it's like, that bridge is a really difficult thing for people to gauge and navigate independently, especially. 90% of the music industry these days, it feels like, oh, you're an amazing musician. Oh no, it's just your parents are rich and all your bills are paid and you can afford to be a musician. Like it's especially, it's just a different ballgame. So anyhow, I got very, very lucky. And definitely like me getting my start was definitely when I saw other names want to play my music. That's when I was just like, oh, cool. Well, if they're doing it, then maybe I'm good enough now. Let's go make some records.
Yeah. So, you cannonballed in. You literally cannonballed in. You're like, fuck all this shit. I'm going
100% all or nothing and almost quit like 3,000 times.
Yeah. I was going to ask, man, because, it comes up all the time. Like a lot of up and coming producers and DJs watch this show. And, I was talking to actually West End about this. And I was like, when would you do it? He's like, there's no when, it's your why. Why are you going to do it? Why are you going to fully commit to music? And it sounds like you realize that this is your true passion. This is what you love.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely always kind of been something that I mean, there's nothing that I've ever loved more in my entire life than house music. It's always
Oh
kind of,
man, I love that.
but when it comes to that crossing that barrier, the answer is just be smart.
Mm-hmm.
Because you don't want to get stuck in the situation that I put myself in, where you're so stressed out about trying to make a living that it's no longer fun. You're not enjoying the ride.
Right.
If I would have done it in like I fast forward 10 or rewind 10 years ago or 11 years ago, and I was like, all right, cool, I'm going to do this. I would have kept my day job.
Wow.
And still worked, that other 5 hours a night, 5 nights a week, and gone out as many times as possible until I was comfortable enough to release the music and be able to, kind of keep that cushion for me. Because the worst part of the world is being like, okay, cool, awesome. I'm creative. I can't pay rent.
Yeah.
That's really, really fucked up feeling to have. And it stifles the creativity, puts too much pressure on the creativity, and you end up doing stupid shit. Like I fucked up my career several times over and over and over again during that process, because at a certain point I had to sacrifice and make money. I took remixes I didn't want to take. I took kill fees I didn't want to take. I signed record deals I didn't want to take.
Wow.
Because it was, almost out of necessity. So fortunately for me, I was able to kind of navigate and learn a lot over the last decade.
Yeah.
And kind of like, I'm still here, which is great. I'm grateful for, but I evaded most of the super big pitfalls. But those are definitely like the challenges that I think producers face on a daily basis, is how do you pay your bills with your art? And then once you're paying your bills with your art, how do you stay true to your art and still pay your bills? Like those are never ending conundrums that I think every artist in the world faces all the time.
Right.
No matter how big you are, the bigger you get, the bigger your expenses get. These guys that you look at and you're like, oh man, that's their private jet and that's their Ferrari.
Got a lot to pay for it.
They also have like 100 something employees working for them.
Yeah, right.
Here's my media team. Here's my my production team. Here's my and you really like. I mean, I really I felt that even harder, especially during the pandemic when I talked to some of these some of my friends that are, major artists. They weren't really worried about themselves. They're worried about how did they go back on tour if all their people underneath them, all their employees, all the people that built them to make them what they are, would they all go and get other jobs? Because they're like, well, fuck, I'm working at a grocery store right now because right now my resume doesn't really look good as a lighting technician. There's not a lot of jobs for that.
Yeah, right.
It's definitely like, the perception of social media has definitely, I think, jarred what people's idea of like a producer and a musician actually is. It's definitely something I think that there's a lot of smoke and mirrors just out there with social media, just in general. And
imposter syndrome is real these days.
You open up the closet and you're like, oh man, like there's it's not what it's necessarily perceived as. So I think that just looking at the game in general, I probably would have made sure that I always had like my bills always paid in other ways of making income than just relying solely on music out the gate. Because that leap is just, I think 99% of every DJ or every artist, every musician fails that. I was definitely one of the lucky, very, very lucky few that were able to survive that fall.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, incredible. I think part of the reason you're maybe in the position you're at now, which is having your hands in a lot of pots, like I said in the beginning, is because you were like, I got to find ways to make money. I got to start throwing events. I need to do remixes. I need to maybe open a label one day, right? Was that part of the reason you've now become an expert on both sides of the industry?
I don't think so. I think I just got really lucky. Okay. I think I got really, really lucky. Like I got, I came up with a cool idea on the promotion side of things to get people together and build communities. And I got very fortunate with that idea took off the way it did. I don't think that if that hadn't happened and worked out, that anything in America would probably be as crazy as it is right now, to be fair.
Wow.
I think that that really got very, very, very lucky idea that worked out. And there's that aspect of it. But also during during that tenure of this concept, this social concept and social experiment get crazy and get out of control. During that, I was also very fortunate to, focus and work with a lot of artists that were very small at the time. And they became the biggest artists in the world. Damn. So those big artists became bigger than anything. They kind of dragged me along for the ride and always kind of helped me out too. So it was kind of like this like serendipitous situation where I wouldn't be where I'm at right now if it weren't for the artists that I worked with in the beginning by any means. And I also wouldn't be where I'm at if, I didn't get really fortunate with I guess, how do I put it?
The Denver scene. I mean,
yeah, I got, if I don't think this would have happened if I was living in Hayes, Kansas. So
yeah,
definitely very fortunate and more luck than it was, just I need to make more money. I'm going to work on this. I'm going to work on this. I'm going to work on this. Then when I started, when I started, the one thing I did get very fortunate with was when I was working with a lot of artists, I could learn by speaking with them, like the struggles they had, and figure out what I could do on my side of things.
Yeah.
To kind of not fall into a lot of those same pitfalls. The problem with the game is no one teaches you anything. You're just kind of like out there floundering, swimming. It's like you sink or swim. You're just kind of by yourself. It's like you're going to make it or you're not. There's not a lot of people that kind of spit game and actually kind of like, hey, here's all the mistakes I made coming up.
Right.
And how you can stop doing that kind of thing. And so I was really fortunate to kind of be able to be in a situation where I was a promoter, where I would be able to, learn a lot from a lot of the artists that were coming into the city and that I developed friendships with and stuff. To kind of understand the game and the way the game works more and more. Because a lot of it is really smoke and mirrors. A lot of it is like Wizard of Oz shit. There's this, how did this person get famous behind the closet? For sure. And you don't really understand it. The public doesn't understand it. And then when the more that you work with in the industry, you can kind of put two and two together. So when I started diversifying and started, when I built the first label, it was just me trying to figure shit out, and it kind of flopped, but it was awesome.
Right.
When I started the second label, it was like, I learned from all my mistakes the first time, and I learned from all those mistakes. So I figure I can make this thing work if I do this, and this,
Right.
And so, I definitely, being able to be a promoter and be an artist and kind of never just cross those streams. Like I never tried to be the promoter DJ. I never tried to do like the gig swapping and the book me or I'll book you, or like I just always was like, if the music is gonna hit and the records do well, then I'll go on tour. And if I put the records out and they flop, so be it. I'm cool. I'm staying home, still a promoter. It's like giving you that blanket of having that day job again, where you're not strictly relying on paying your bills with touring, right? And not strictly relying on paying your bills with that side of things, but you're still, still blessed to be in the music industry. So if my career was really hot for a minute, then it was hot. If it started to fade and it dipped because I was concentrating on other stuff, I was still technically in the game. It's almost kind of like I'm at the poker table, but I'm not just like all in all the time. I'm just sitting there. Here's my Annie chip. I don't like the river.
Right.
I don't like the flop. Okay, it's kind of like that'd be the best way to describe it. So I'm really fortunate that I was able to pay my bills in music and not necessarily strictly on just the artist side, because that would have put a tremendous amount more pressure on me for the last 10 years if I was just paying my bills strictly by DJing.
For sure, Brennan. And I think there's something to be said, what you mentioned about relationships, like these guys when they were small, these guys and girls, and then they blew up. How special is it to you now being in the game with them on these levels and being a part of that journey? As cliche as it is to say, it's all about the journey. It really is, man, because you just said it. You don't know what the destination is going to be. I don't know when I'm going to blow up. I don't know when I'm going to go down, but I'm going to enjoy the ride and I'm going to make sure what I'm doing I love. And I feel like that's the most fulfilling part of this industry.
Oh, that is the industry.
That is the industry. Yes. Nobody
is in this game. Nobody's in this game unless they love it. It takes too much work and there's too much sacrifice on the personal side of things. I don't know how many hours a week I work, and I don't know how many hours a week everybody around me works, a lot. And it's not necessarily to get rich or get a lot of money or clout or whatever. It's because, they truly love their job. They truly love what they do. Like, especially as how decimated we were during the pandemic as an industry as a whole. Yeah. Like, golly, everybody who has a job right now in music is doing something in music right now. They fucking love it, because there's no glamour anymore. There's no Hollywood got its ass kicked. The music industry got its ass kicked. I mean, the biggest names in the world sitting there being like, donate $5 on Twitch, because I was like, you know what I'm saying?
They didn't know what to do. Nobody would know what to do.
Yeah, sitting there in their living room, just like, this is cool, right? Like, I mean, I definitely feel like everybody that's in it is definitely in it for the right reasons. They sacrificed a lot to try and make it work, and that's why it's so important to support every artist you can. It's definitely a labor of love. It's not something I just went to school for 6 years and now I get my entry level position here, and then this is what I'm expecting to make 3 more years, and this is, it doesn't work that way. It's the weirdest industry in the world. You get paid when you're hot. When you're not. Like, it's so toxic in a lot of ways, there's no 401k in this shit. So I don't know. I think there's definitely a labor of love for everybody that's involved. I mean, that is the industry, is just loving the art and making people happy. That's the 2 driving forces for sure.
Completely agreed, brother. Completely agreed. Okay, so I want to get into some of your music, man. You got an incredible discography. It was so much fun running through all your tracks. As much as I'd love to go deep on everyone, we just don't have the time. But I do want to talk about what I think is your first release, To the Night EP on Velcro City Records. You remember this one in 2012?
My goodness. Yeah. Oh my goodness. Yeah. Velcro City, first distributed record on a real.
Let's go. All right, let's check out one of Option 4's first tracks. This one's called Sunnyside, featuring Aubrey on Velcro City Records.
That's Jay Shislowski, fucking legend. What a wonderful dude. One of the best. People. Has a great little record. VCR is awesome. Got a ridiculously, wildly diverse catalog. But
I checked it out. Holy shit.
I know, it's like it's all over the place, but I just love that guy. And he's one of the best label managers ever. Like, the guy's extremely sharp, and he gets a lot of licensing deals for his artists and stuff, and takes care of people. Like, that's a great label. I'm very blessed that he let me release on it.
Yeah, dude. And this was a 4-track EP, and it was super unique for 2012 because it was like fusion of tech, acid, minimal, funk. I mean, it was fun.
All over the place.
Yeah.
That was kind of like the MO though. I loved making music, but I was really, I never wanted to make the same song twice. Like, I couldn't get into that formulaic kind of production mode. I was really scared to go down that route.
Yes.
Most to the detriment of my career, because a couple releases later after that, I had some big ones, and then it got kind of intimidating for me because I didn't know really if I wanted to continue doing it. So that's old school.
That is, man. I mean, and what a special time though in dance music, in 2012, particularly in the US. I mean, that was the EDM boom, right? The Alessos, the Swedish House Mafias. And I just fucking love what you just said though, bro. Like, you didn't want to do the same thing twice. And that just really wrapped everything together in my head about your discography, because you've made some fucking dope shit, but I'm not sure what some of it is. And I love that.
Well, if it makes you feel better, I don't know either. Sometimes.
Yeah, bro. I was just like, I've never heard anything like this. And that's refreshing for me as someone who interviews mostly people in house music, right? And I was like, this is fucking awesome.
Well, a lot of it, to be fair, is dog shit. I think that, what I always liked about making music is I didn't want to be, I was very fortunate. I've always been fortunate. Like, I didn't, I was really fortunate that a lot of labels just kind of let me do what I wanted to do. And
yeah, for sure.
Not really A&R me too hard or do too much, put too much like restriction on me. And even if the records weren't like hot, maybe like 2 or 3 out of 50 were going to be hot. And they were going to bang, and a lot of people were going to play them. And then, the other ones, everybody, but like I said, I wasn't really worried about that. I just like the idea of making stuff and challenging my own self. Like I never like, especially with the sample packs now, and just like kind of the way people produce music now, a lot of it is very kind of like, there's a certain set of guidelines you kind of follow, right? And I think that's why a lot of stuff sounds like very homogenous in certain genres, for sure. I'm fortunate enough to just be like, you know what, I'm putting it out, and if it sucks, it sucks. But I liked it when I was writing it, so.
For sure, man. And I mean, once it's out too, it's like the producer here. It's like you give me in your studio, and then once it's out to the world, you're like, is this the same song? I think. Yeah,
it's funny. Like I always have it. They all. I mean, for the most part, a lot of my records, they all kind of sound all over the place, but there is still going to be some signature sounds that are like, oh well, I know I did that because that's exactly what I. Yeah, and that sounds kind of like what I did over here.
Right.
Not going to necessarily be in a formula at all, for sure.
For sure. Yeah. You pull inspiration from everywhere, man. I mean, and honestly, whatever you say aside, your label discography is still very impressive. Psycho Disco, Box of Cats, Thrive, Moody Recordings, of course, HotBOI, which we'll talk about. But there's one I want to bring up, Nervous Records, man. You've released a lot of great music with them, especially early on. For those that don't know, this is one of the longest standing independent record labels, and they've just done incredible things since day one, always taking a willingness to new producers and sounds. And before we talk about your tracks, I mean, what's your relationship with these guys like?
I love Andrew and Mike with my whole heart. Like those boys are just legends in the game. You can't, I put them on a pedestal, especially in America. Yeah, for American labels to last that long and still have the impact and the ability to do the stuff now. And they're working with like Louis Vega on the Grammy stuff. And just like, I mean, like what I love about Andrew, a fantastic A&R. What I love about Mike is just a fantastic businessman. Like they stuck true. Like when Mike came back and like Mike returned and Nervous was back, I was just like, it made me really happy because it was like, there's all this other music out there. We're just going to put out New York house music. And
yes, exactly, bro.
I really, they weren't following a lot of trends or anything. And, they're just, tip top label. I put out some of my favorite records of all time with those guys. And I try, if I ever going to send anything over to them, I'll give them my best work for sure. They're just, they're great, great, great people.
That's awesome, man. I always love to ask about that because, I started working with the Hood Politics Records, and DJ Susan says, what up, by the way.
Oh, awesome.
You booked him out in August at Vinyl, right?
Yeah. I'm looking forward to meeting him. He's coming out in a couple of months.
Oh, you'll meet him for sure. He won't leave your side, bro.
I'm really looking forward to it. It's going to be a good time. But yeah, I love love everything that he's got going on too. He's been really pushing a solid sound and getting a lot of people really hyped. I think like he's doing really well, it looks like. So
for sure. And I think that there's parallels there. It's like a label these days needs to be so much more than just like some DJ who backs the label and drops the tracks. It needs to be like, once you join this label, you're part of the family. And I feel like that's Nervous Records, man. Like they've been in the game. They have people consistently release, but they take new chances. And that's why we try and do with Hood Politics. And like, we model a lot of the stuff after labels like them and take chances on records, right? Like that's what you're supposed to do. You're not supposed to sure, it's smart sometimes from a business perspective to go with what's working, but it's also not as much fun to say, yo, what the fuck is this track? Let's try and drop this shit. Right.
Yeah, no. Basically. Yeah. You just hit it on the head. They've always been really, really good about giving people chances if they fuck with the records. And, they're just, it's funny. You get one record on Nervous, you get like promoters from Europe, just like, hey, what's up?
Yeah. Right.
they fuck with it that hard. I know, it's pretty cool. And they put out, to be fair, they put out some of my biggest records of all time. Like that Love Like No Other record that I did with them in the beginning.
I know you're going to love this track. It's called Love Like No Other by Option4 on Nervous Records. I was about to bring it up with Black Cats, man. Like that stands the test of time, brother, for sure. Downloaded it immediately. That's on the USB, and you know it's the highest form of a compliment, DJ.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I know that record. That was funny. I didn't know Andrew. I didn't know him. I like so. I had like very little money, but I knew when I wrote Love Like No Other, I had this accident happen where on the chord progression on the last bar, I hit the wrong chord when I was playing it, but it gave it this dissonance. And it like what I kind of figured out, because I was, like I said, no one to teach me this shit. I'm not classically trained by any fucking thing. But what was nice about it was, if you take the bass note out, then it doesn't jar, it just stands alone as this like sound that hits the different register and sounds twerky, but it doesn't sound like, oh, I made a huge mistake because the bass is on, right? So even though that chord is out of key, when it's just by itself in a kick drum, then you remove everything else around it, then it's just a chord that sounds a little wonky. And so when that had happened, it really was intriguing to me. And then that's what kind of flipped me to think, well, okay, if we're going to go along this way of making kind of like this groovy kind of new disco indie dance kind of record, then we have to do the exact same thing and hit him with the most unexpected hardcore drop of all time. that record saved my life, man. I knew I had a banger. I knew I had something, and I just had to get it to them. And so like, I was like, hey man, like, I ended up getting his email and sending him the record, didn't hear back. And then I emailed him again. It was like, hey, I'm going to be in New York this weekend. I would love to come see The Office. And just kind of set that out there. And he got back to me and was like, oh, if you're in New York, you should come by and take a look at The Office. And we're over here in Manhattan. And I wasn't going to be in New York. So when he got back to me, I was like, oh, I am now. So I bought a flight the next day to fly to New York City, and I flew to New York City. And like, I had no money. I barely had enough money for a hotel. Like I was taking like trying to figure out the subway system to get all the way over to everywhere I need to get to. I finally get to Manhattan. I'm like 5 minutes early for the meeting. I'm like looking at this building, and it's like on the 55th floor, like off, like right on Wall Street, like ballers. And I'm just like, oh my goodness. Hustle up there, I walk in, I get on the elevator, and I get to the, like, I'm walking, and I still remember that shit. I think I still have like the photo on Instagram from like 10 years ago or something. But like, I get to the door, and it's like Nervous Recordings, and has like the engraving on the door, and I'm like, oh man, this is legendary. Oh,
it's real.
Door, open it up, Mike is there, and he's like, hey, what are you doing here? And I was like, hi, my name is Brennan. I was emailing Andrew. He told me I could come by and say hi, and he was like, oh, Andrew left. He went back to Long Island like 2 hours ago. He took the day off. He took off after lunch. And I was just like, oh, cool. Well, I was just in the neighborhood.
Oh my
I was
God.
like, oh, it was so funny. And that Mike felt all bad. And like, he was like, oh, well, here you go. Here's some stickers and here's a hoodie. Thanks for coming by. And I was like, nice to meet you. Yeah, I wanted to, yeah, next time I'm in town or whatever, I'll come by and whatever. And I was like super disappointed. Got to the hotel that night, flew out the next morning. I spent like my last, like, I was, I'm telling you, I was like flat broke. And then I get the email like the Monday after, and it's from Andrew. And he's like, dude, I'm so sorry. I missed you. Mike said you came by, blah, 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 blah. Hey, I finally listened to the demo. I like this record a lot. What are you going to do with it? You need a B-side if you want to do whatever. Like, and then that's how basically the record got signed, is like this pity thing. He finally listened to it.
Fuck it, yeah.
He felt so bad that he blew me off. But then, the record came out and it did real good. It got me like my first agent, and then, he was working on Bonobo. So I was getting on like Bonobo support gigs because I was making like this kind of left field shit. And, that was like what got me into the game, I guess. Like I finally started being able to tour as opposed to just being like a local artist. So that record, that story is really funny. I don't know if I ever told Andrew that or not. I'm not sure if I did, but
well, we got to send this to him. That's amazing.
Yeah, legends. Like glad that he took a chance on the record, because that's a label that if you get a record on and it is a good record, it can do, it can make serious rounds for sure.
Unreal, man. That's fucking awesome. And
pretty embarrassing, but pretty funny.
What a great story. Yeah, that is like you just literally explained the story as what you said earlier, man. It's a labor of love, bro. Like you literally were just like, all right, I'm doing it. I'm going by myself.
Oh man, getting stuff signed, the eternal struggle, right?
The eternal struggle, man. Yo, I respect that shit though. That was old school style. Hey, I'm knocking on your fucking door, man. I'm here. Right? Not following up on this email, not hitting you up on Insta. I'm here.
That doesn't mean anybody can knock on my door now.
That's true.
I'm playing. I'm just joking.
That's hilarious. I fucking love that, man. So cool. So cool. Another great track that you did with Nervous too, with Worthy, Dance Around. This track is so fucking raw, man. It's underground energy. I mean, Worthy is such a special producer, and this was in 2018 too. So it was like, house music was starting to really get its wings. I remember that was when I feel like it was not getting commercialized, but like people were respecting house music in the US much more. And I feel like this track really envelops all of that. All right, let's check this one out together. It's called Dance Around by Option4 with Worthy on Nervous Records.
Dance around if you're feeling like we're feeling. Just touch the ground if you're feeling like we're feeling. Just dance around if you're feeling like we're feeling. Just touch the ground if you're feeling like we're feeling. Just dance around if you're feeling like we're feeling. Just touch the ground if you're feeling like we're feeling. Just dance around if you're feeling like we're feeling. Just touch the ground if you're feeling like we're feeling. Just dance around if you're feeling like we're feeling. Just touch the ground if you're feeling like we're feeling. Just dance around if you're feeling like we're 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 feeling like we're
Yeah. Oh man, I love working with her. Yeah, we've been friends for a very long time. And so anytime I get to do anything with her, I'm always like, I'm always amped. That's one of probably my most like one of my closest friends that in the DJ world or whatever that I've had the pleasure of getting to know.
That's awesome.
For a very, very long time. And to see her progress, and now the stuff she's making now is crazy. She was showing me stuff of the album. I was just like, oh my goodness, this is some of your best shit ever.
She's like, I'm me, like fully on worthy. And it's like, fuck yes, inspiring so many people.
Yeah, she's I'm really, really happy to see her bloom, and her creative, direction with the new music is, I can't wait for everybody to hear it, because I've heard it and I'm like, man, it's banger. But yeah, I love that record that we did. It was definitely aggro energy kind of thing. Like we were like trying to get it. It's a club record for sure.
Right.
when we were making it, we made a few others that day. And it was all, well, she won't tell you this, but there was one really like after like 30 minutes, we're like, this is too dark. Why is there a gunshot going on? Why are we what's happening? And we had to like go outside and like get our chi right and come back in the studio, work on something a little more positive, and then that came out. But yeah, that was yeah, definitely love working with her, and she's one of my favorite people.
Oh my God, that's so funny. Why is there a gunshot in this? Yeah,
there was. I'm not kidding. She'll deny it, but there was like some really hood ass record we were making or something. I don't know. It was like I don't know. There was a gunshot sampled, and we were like, oh my God, what are we doing?
You strike me as someone that likes to collab in person, though. Is that true?
Well, I got that from Chris Manic. He was a legendary house producer from New York, worked with Josh Wink, Ovum Records, just fucking legend beyond legend. One of the coolest people in the world. Just love that kid to death. But yeah, Chris, we decided one time, he was like, he saw I was in LA. He's like, yo, why don't you come to the studio? I'm working on my album. Like, come do like a voice drop for my album. And I was like, all right, cool. I'll come over to the studio. And then while we were fucking around with synths and stuff, we were like, you want to just make a record and see what happened? And within like an hour, we had written just banger record. Wow. And we were like, oh, well, maybe there's something here. Maybe I'll come back tomorrow and we just see whatever. And I think within like 2 days, we had written like 6 or 7 records or something. And they were some never came out, but a lot of them all got signed. That 909 Till Infinity project was like the funnest project ever, but it was also like a side project. We weren't trying to necessarily tour it. We only played a couple of shows, like one in San Diego, one in Denver or something. We only played a couple of shows as that project because our sounds were so different. I was kind of making tech house. He was making proper house kind of at the time, you know? So it was like, we couldn't do stuff solo really on the same, it wouldn't work. But with that project, we would just make super unique records. And the rule of thumb was if he was coming to Denver, he would work in my studio. If I was out there, we would work in their studio. But we didn't want to do the thing where we were like sending stems and it would go too far of a different direction if we weren't constantly like check each other. So I think it's really, I mean, collabs over online and stuff are one thing, but I think it's really, really important to be when you're working with somebody, at least for me anyhow. I enjoy working in person as a collab a lot more because it's so much more hands-on. There's so many more, oh, I don't like this direction. You stop it right then, you know, I want to go this direction. You go that direction. They come up with a little idea. If you're right there and you're like, before they give up on the idea, you're like, oh my God, that idea is amazing. Keep running. You get that assurance or whatever. You can't do that if you're getting stems every other week, right? Because you don't know how many things have happened to the record before you get them back. So yeah, for collabs, I'm big on being in the studio with the people. Because it just it adds that's the only way I think records really truly feel like representation of both artists. You know,
absolutely. You want that 50-50 fusion. It's all about the energy in the room, man. I feel like that's my favorite part about music. Like I just said, like I want to hang out. I want to make music. I want to talk music. You know, I want to grow together. And like collabing is such a fun part of the industry. And I feel like we have seen that so much more since the pandemic when artists had more time to actually be like, yo, fuck it, I'm making something totally new. I want to collaborate with this person. I don't have to think I need a track that's going to take me on tour. I don't have to think I need a track that's going to get me on this label. I just want to have fun making music again. And that's why I feel like we're in this revolution where it's like, there's no more genres for the most part, man. You know, like people are fucking fusing shit together and it's just such a special time in electronic music.
Yeah, I think that's the best part about the pandemic is the creative freedom that it gave artists across the board. Everybody's making different shit. Everybody. Yeah. And part of that is also too, I mean, if there are no clubs and there's no parties, you're not sitting there in your living room listening to club music.
No, I don't want to. It's sad.
It loses a lot of its luster, you know? And I think that's kind of there's so many artists coming out with so many cool new things, so many not even experimental, I should say, because I guess everything has always been whatever, but there's a lot of people playing in very weird tempos, like much faster than traditionally ever get booked in a club, you know, like a lot of it's kind of like left field break stuff, the Jensen Interceptors and the, you know, some of these artists that are making stuff that's just way out there and still making it work in like a club setting now. That wouldn't have happened in 2020 if we didn't have the pandemic, for sure. those artists would have, not probably been able to tour maybe as much as they are now too. So it's pretty cool to see. And it's really cool to see a lot of this like experimental stuff kind of be at the forefront, because without a club, people have a little bit more freedom to kind of make what they want to listen to or make how they feel too. Maybe if you're always feeling like everything's a party because your life is a party, you're making club bangers every day because you're on tour every weekend and you're making
right.
You can see like the whole, like if all the DJs are doing that, of course that's going to be kind of like the energy that you put out. They're not going to be sitting there being like, man, I'm at the club, but I can't play this record because no one will like it in the club.
Right.
They're going to make the record that they think is going to work in their sets or they're excited to experiment with. I mean, road testing records before you sign them was everything, still kind of is in a lot of ways when you're touring heavily. But
yeah, absolutely.
I think that the best part about the pandemic for sure is just the creative freedom, seeing all these other artists bubble and all these other independent promoters doing all these different parties in non-traditional venues, like the more the merrier. I think it's been really exciting and cool to see. And that's happening everywhere in America for sure.
Absolutely. Speaking of creativity, we got to talk about your releases on Club Sweat. You have to tell me these tracks, man, because you released them all in 1 year and they are wild names. The Rise of the Cat Lord, The Vicious Rule of Safa, The Deadly Dance of Rigatoni Rodriguez. I was like, are you kidding me? The Melancholy Tribute of Bodie Page, The Art of the Betrayer. I'm like, is this like a fucking novel? Like, crazy, bro. And they're all so fucking different. And on Club Sweat, I was like, yo, option 4 is a fucking legend for this. Okay, come on. We have to listen to this one together. It's called The Rise of the Cat Lord by Option 4 on Club Sweat.
I can't believe they let me do that. It was really awesome. I love those guys and I love the Sweat It Out boys. I just love them to death. I think, it was all part of like a graphic novel series that I got obsessed with writing, and I'm not a good writer and I don't know what punctuation is. So I got Treasure Fingers actually to illustrate all of those people all of those people, and all the names are actually all just real life friends of mine in Denver. And so we went and took photos. Took photos of them, and then made and Ashley was able to illustrate them like a comic book. So we told the story on these like on these comic books that would come out with the records. So like it's about the Cat Lord and his rise in this dirty city called Denver.
Let's go! Bro, fucking unreal.
Oh, so funny. I had a lot of fun writing those records and working with all my friends. Like every single one of those people that like the record is named after. The Betrayer is legend in Denver. He moved to New York. His name is Rayer, but Rayer the Betrayer, you can put it together. The Cat Lord is my boy Davey. He throws really dope techno parties.
Let's go, Cat Lord. That's my favorite track too.
Cat Lord is the dude. But so those are all just like records mimicked off friends that I have in Denver, and we just did the comic book and wrote this ridiculous story because I think I was smoking too much weed at the time. But it was definitely a lot of fun. And shout out Sweat It Out for being the best record label ever. Just getting behind creative stuff. They're just the best.
100%, man, dude. I was dying at the Deadly Dance of Rigatoni Rodriguez.
The Deadly Dance of you don't want to fuck with Rigatoni Rodriguez,
bro. I was like, I don't know who Rigatoni Rodriguez is, but I don't want to run into him in an alley.
Such a legend. That's my boy Jeremy. He's a legend in Denver, man. It's not a party unless Jeremy goes.
I can honestly tell you, those are by far the most creative names I've ever heard in dance music. I mean,
oh man, yeah. I'm surprised they weren't Billboard hits. Now that I think about it.
You had it all, man. That's more than music. That's when we take the fucking music from the sound to real life. I mean,
yeah, that was a really, really, really fun set of a fun record to make. It was it was going to come out all at once, but we decided to break them up and do them into singles. So yeah, there's no theme, but the name of the album was The Rise of the Cat Lord, and that was going to go on. But I never finished any more on that series because time and everything else. But yeah, hey, that was a lot of fun.
I don't know if you've talked about it again before, but we'd love to hear fucking the sequel, bro. Come on.
Gotta go holler at the Cat Lord, find out what's
Rise of the Cat Lord 2.
No, what happened was Netflix didn't give me a season 2.
Yeah, we need a season 2.
Gotta holler at the bosses. I gotta go talk to the boys over at Sweat It Out and say, look, though, season 2, the fans need it. It's too funny.
We need a Cat Lord tour too. This could be a play. This could be a musical. I mean, my mind is
musical. That's what I'm saying. Like a little pre-show before the club. Everybody set up a little stage, some acting in there, a little cosplay. That's the move. Our branding is on point. Let's go.
On point. That's what I'm talking about. Absolutely cracking me up, bro. Okay. So I want to get in a little more into HotBOI Records. We've mentioned it a few times. I do want to talk about your track Big Grin with Born Dirty. Love this track. It's called Big Grin by option4 with Born Dirty on HotBOI Records. Because this track is so fucking dope, man. And you've only released 3 tracks on your own label, but this one is like very special track. And Born Dirty, of course, is an incredible producer. What did you guys make this one in person?
Yeah, we made every record. Yeah, I've never made a record with anybody online.
Oh, that's official. That's your rule.
Yeah, I don't think it doesn't. There's not enough. It's just I don't believe in it. But yeah, when it comes to working with Mika, that's just an honor and a privilege. We played a party in Seattle together. Shout out Noise Complaint, best promoters in the country. I always tell everybody.
Hell yeah.
Went and played a party in Seattle and got to know Mika there. And I was in LA for another show or something. And he was like invited me to the studio, and we kind of fucked around, but not really did anything. And then he was out in Denver for a festival or something. I can't remember what he was out here playing, but he came out to Denver to play, and he came over to my studio, and we worked on that record at my studio. And yeah, I can't explain. There are a small group of producers in the world that I would consider almost kind of like super producers.
Yeah.
Like so talented, thinking so far ahead of the game, so unbelievably, like I would put Mika in that ball game as far as talent as a producer.
Agreed, man.
Like there's not a lot of people that can be as diverse as him and sonically get the range that he gets out of all of his samples and synths, man. Like we made a couple records a little while ago, and I was literally blown away at the attention to detail on the smaller side of things that sometimes producers obsess over, but he does it to the 1,000th degree, like 1,000th degree. Like what producers like me to shame in a lot of ways. It's wildly impressive how good that guy is in the studio, and he can do anything. It's literally mind-boggling. This is like his 4th or 5th project. but he's got other projects he's never even released. And you watch like the films behind him, he's scored, dude, the guy it's out of control. Like just, it's awe-inspiring in a lot of ways, how much beautiful music that guy can make. He can sing, he can play the guitar, he can play the bass,
he's a savant. Yeah. Fucking
dude's like next level out there. Me, I'm like, I love the fact that I found out something that I could do without this key change here that I don't really know how to describe. It was pretty cool and became a hit. Like he's just like a monster, you know? And so, that I was glad to get that record. And I was really hesitant, you know, when the label started getting bigger and bigger. After I put the first record out, I was really scared after I put out Lifeline, I was really scared to put out any more on the label. Because once it started becoming like a vessel and it started becoming something that I could use to promote other artists, it's almost the same exact opinion of what, you know, like when I became a promoter and started throwing parties, the parties didn't really get good until I took myself off the parties.
Wow.
Like when you start creating that vessel and that platform for people, like it really expands and goes to a whole new level when you're using that as you should to promote other artists. So that's why I very rarely play in Colorado. It's why I mean, maybe once in a billion years, I'll play like my own party. Although I am playing my own party on Saturday. I'm opening up a new pop-up club. Like my thing is like, the same thing came with the record label. It was like, if I want to see this thing grow and be this thing to be able to springboard artists and build, you know, the HotBOI thing is very calculated. There was a lot of steps that were about to happen in 2020 that I think were going to be very revolutionary for the industry just in general. And I was well on my way, at least I thought, to being able to accomplish those goals with the label. But a lot of it was trying to remove myself from the equation as much as possible, because when you're using it to push other people, what that does is not like the whole bullshit, the tide rises with all ships or all ships. What it actually does is it allows you to be underneath and associate and push these other artists in your market and in your sphere of influence. And as that grows, what that does is it makes everybody else bigger. It makes the ability to put on tours where these artists are associating with these artists, and they wouldn't have had that association before if they didn't have the umbrella to be under. And so, you know, removing yourself from the equation is the most important part about that, because if it's just about you, you're isolating the ability for these artists to be collabing together. You're isolating these artists to be, it's like the artists are underneath you in some way, shape, or form. And so when I built like the label, I saw that the end and the way to make it really successful was make it more about the brand and the party, as opposed to making it about option4 or my personal career. Because in the end, the main thing is like, you know, I really didn't, you know, I got enough parties in Denver to sustain myself. I got enough, you know, people that I look after here that I don't need, you know, that gig money to pay my rent. So it was more along the lines of, how can I use that to sustain the artists that are using that to pay their rent or pay their bills, right? How can I use that to build a platform so that it becomes so strong and the brand becomes so loved that they feel like the artists are getting the proper shine and they're getting the proper attention that they deserve when you're throwing these parties, that it allows them to get bigger, because the bigger they get, the bigger the label gets, which will only in turn make, you know, the ability to springboard more artists a lot easier and create that culture around a brand, as opposed to, hey, this is my label and I'm releasing 17 times on it instead of putting out 17 other artists. Like, you got a choice there. And to me, it was like, I was very, especially after Lifeline kind of did what it did and became kind of like this very catchy cult record. I was like, I got to be very careful about releasing on the label from here on out. So the collab with Born Dirty was like one of those things we put out. We did it as a collab. I love Mika, and that was a really fun project. But it, you know, out of 27 releases on the label, it was really important that 20 of those were not option4 records. I didn't want to build a platform just so I would be able to release music. And the other thing is this: if I wasn't getting my music signed on other labels, then that doesn't validate the label either. Does that make sense?
Yes.
It's like if I look at it in the same way as like the promoter mentality. If I'm promoting this party and I'm in charge of the booking and I'm just booking myself over and over and over again, that doesn't give me there's no checks and balances. There's no quality control. There's no, you know what I'm saying? And so it's more important for me to release on other record labels and get my art out that way than it would be to release on my own label, because there's going to be somebody that says, hey, this is not good enough. This isn't a fit. This isn't the right vibe. This isn't whatever. There's going to be somebody that's going to say, this is a dope record and I fucking love it. And they want to push it and promote it. Sweet. That works out great because I've already got this vessel built that I'm promoting other artists on and trying to build these bridges where they don't exist.
Yeah. I think there's so much to take away from what you just said there. And I think I started throwing my own parties because I wanted to play house music, right? And I couldn't get gigs because it's Chicago. There's a lot of house DJs here. And I was like, okay, cool. I'll be able to book myself as the headliner, right? Like selfishly. And the second that I started throwing parties, and I was like, you know what? Like, I'm either going to take the first spot or I'm not going to be on the lineup, but I'm going to push it hard and I'll play other shows. It brought more people to mind because it gave me that validity that, hey, Sherm does all these other cool things. If he's throwing his own party and he's not even DJing, he's just going to be there, right? I'm going to go. And it's a tough thing to do, especially when like you do want to be an artist, right? But that's a very mature way to put it, is like put others before yourself, and in turn everyone can grow together.
Yeah, I mean I think especially for where the bigger the parties get too, and the more the bigger the sizes of the events that you work on, it really is. I mean, you kind of look at it like, if you're an independent artist and you're going to try and make that jump that we talked about in the beginning of the conversation, try and take it for real and try and pay your bills in music and try and navigate, how can I pay my bills and still produce and be an artist and eventually go on tour and that'll be my full-time gig. You have to use these opportunities and these looks, and you have to use put these artists in positions to do that.
Yeah.
If you're already throwing all the biggest parties and playing all the biggest parties and you're just always on the line, you don't give a chance for anything else to grow. And I guess that can kind of work if you are the hottest shit since sliced bread, but I'm not. So it's really easy to kind of look at it in the sense where you go, man, if I'm booking Red Rocks and I've got some ridiculously dope lineup and 10,000 people, I want to try and reward those slots and push for those slots for these artists that have a chance. Right. And so, working on the local scene as a promoter and working as an artist and a DJ, I've got local artists in Denver now that are putting tickets on the board. They're selling real tickets. They have real fans for them, for their art. And if you're always kind of like putting yourself above all those people, it fucks up the dynamic and you don't give a chance for any of the undergrowth to breathe, because the next Jamie Jones is out there. The next Chris Lake is 17 right now. The next whoever, they're there. And if you're not trying to figure out ways of elevating those people to have those opportunities, then that's how scenes shrink. That's how you become Hayes, Kansas, where there's one promoter throwing one party. You have to really try and like fan the flames of supporting as many independent artists as possible and booking as many people as possible, giving as many people as many chances to play as possible. Because when I moved to Denver, there was nobody that would let me play either. I couldn't get a gig, right?
Damn.
And I had to do the same thing. I created my own party, created my own marketing entity, created my own everything. And then at that time, it started, it was bubbling so hard and becoming so big, so fast.
Yeah.
Like it was a situation where the only way it could grow is if I removed myself from the equation and let everybody else thrive and have a piece. Because I remember what it was like when I moved to Denver and no one would give me a gig, right? So that's where kind of things have really thrived in Colorado. Like we have a tremendous amount of parties. Now there's a tremendous amount of promoters. Everybody's throwing a party. Everybody's doing all kinds of stuff. And it's just, that's the real strength of a scene is when there's multiple inputs involved and multiple different cultures kind of doing their own thing, as opposed to, just one person trying to run it all.
Amen, man. Was that one of the reasons you want to start HotBOI though, is to give other artists that chance to grow?
No, that came as like a byproduct.
Okay.
I came as a byproduct. When I wanted to start HotBOI, I wanted to have fun with building something that I thought was very important at the time, which now is very common knowledge. But basically, I had like a 5-year plan to do the label, like, and branding and everything was more about a war on social media. I always felt like social media was like the most poisonous thing in the world. So
Yeah.
all of the branding is these big events or these things that happened before social media, right? So all of it, everybody was like, well, you're just like ripping off the 90s and putting 90s stuff on there. But they couldn't, I was building the bridge through the Instagram and through artwork on the visuals and the artwork on the releases and the merchandise, especially, to eventually link that bridge to being like, okay, cool, in 5 years, this is why. Now the pandemic hit and everybody realized how poisonous social media was. But when I started the label, it was more about a social statement than it was about the music.
Yeah.
And about like a platform, because I started HotBOI Records with $500. I paid $500 for the logo, and I had $500 that I paid for merch, and
Shit.
like that's what I started with, when I built it. So there was no platform to build other artists. There was nothing, there was nothing. So once it started to get bigger and became this, like, when the parties, started popping, and the other artists started, all his artists started sending me stuff that, it got to the point where then it was like, okay, cool, we're using this platform to strategically build these artists from Europe into America. And then the goal would be in a couple of years to start building US artists in Europe. Try to get HotBOI in Europe was the end goal. And so I had all these plans on to do it, but the reason the label came about was more of a social statement than it was like a business decision. It was like, I'm going to tell the story through art and through really smart branding and through very aggressive, very kind of political in nature. A lot of like the especially like the early merch, especially, some of that stuff now, I don't know if I'd release from the backlash of the internet, so much. And I don't know if I'd release a lot of the artwork anymore that, nowadays, I don't think it's necessarily appropriate, but that was more of the mission with the label. It wasn't, I'm going to make a label to build up artists. That had nothing to do with it.
Fuck no. Yeah.
More of like a personal social vendetta against technology. And so that's why all of the branding and all of the art all came from everything before social media. Be like, oh, we're gonna show this very shocking event or something that would have been viral. If it would have been viral, if the internet was there, then we were gonna make an image of it, or we were gonna put it on a record, or we're gonna put it on the artwork for the release. And that was kind of like the mode for it. But it wasn't this like, oh, I'm going to build a label to build a platform for people, because there was no idea, there was no hope. I mean, there was no dream that the platform would exist. It just started off. I mean, the merch, especially, I mean, we would drop them. We'd make one post, zero money spent behind it all, and sell $10,000 worth of merch in an hour. Like, it would sell out, be gone forever. And then we'd have to make it. And we take the money, and we, with the merch, it would be able to pay for the proper PR and proper promo for the records. Because, that's where you're not going to make your money. You're not going to make your money on an independent label by just selling your records or getting streams, unless you sign a record like Word and get very fortunate and come up with a good plan. And, that like that'll do it. But the majority of the music is not going to. So, HotBOI was definitely more of a social statement than it was a commercial vessel.
I love that. You're fucking righteous about it, man. Like, political in its nature, like you said. I've never heard anybody that started a label for that reason. Like, for the people, honestly, like for you, for the people, and for fucking fans of the music. And that's unheard of, to sell that much merch with no PR behind it and shit. That's dedicated fans.
Yeah, we have a really, really strong fan base in the label. It's pretty crazy. But we also did a lot of really cool stuff just for the fans.
Yeah.
So like, if they did buy a t-shirt, I would always sneak something extra in the package. Or, like I came up with the whole, like, when we did the trading cards, 1 out of every 10 pieces of merch would get a pack of the trading cards, but 1 out of every 10 of those packs would have a special card in that would get them guest list for life to anything I did,
Wow.
There's like this cult phenomenon that happens with the label, because we always went above and beyond just selling stuff. It wasn't about selling product as much as it was trying to tell a story and connect with them. And so for how small the label is, it had a dramatic impact. And, we sold out 70% of our shows, in 2019 for the country. So it definitely, is really cool to see. And it's probably the coolest thing about it all. I mean, obviously the bigger names on the tour and, the big names that will play on the underneath the umbrella obviously help, but really cool to see just like, I was getting photos all weekend long. Everybody's wearing my merch. And I was like, man, that shit's like 4 years old. And they still kept, I got people with like, haven't opened it out of the package. Cause
damn,
you know what I mean? They still have it all pressed and shit. And so,
holy shit. That's fucking old school, man. That's like when you got the bobbleheads and shit.
Yeah. It's like, the idea is to, when I restart the label, to take a lot of time to make sure that experience is still intact. And hopefully we can still, treat people with something fun to look forward to that's a little different than just like, going to the store and buying a shirt.
Oh man, that's amazing, bro. And props to you though on this discography though, because the tracks are so sick. I mean, Steve Darko, Bach, Kyle Watson, Kevin Knapp, Ways and Odyssey. The Max Chapman track, by the way, I'm so glad that I found that because that's a fucking
roller
banger roller, bro. Yeah. Like I don't think not enough people know about that track. I just fucking told the people right now, but
yeah, man, it's a roller. Yeah,
it is.
Everybody always kind of gave me their best work for sure, or
definitely
at the time the coolest records. Like I was really blessed with a lot of really good demo submissions from some remarkably talented producers.
Absolutely, Kyle Watson is one of the most unique producers in the game.
Legend, man, legend. I got to hang with them this weekend. It was good to catch up.
That's fucking
awesome. Fucked up that release. I actually fucked that release up.
Did you?
Yeah, he sent me the master demo, and somehow I got it goofed up with the final master, and so I uploaded the wrong record and kind of fucked everything up on that one. But he was cool about it. We got it switched, but still.
There you go. You're good. What was that moment like though when you got Word by Walker and Royce Vanessa? I mean, did you know it was gonna be a hit? I mean, it's phenomenal track, but what it's done for house music, I feel like is a global impact, to be honest with you, bro. If you're a house music fan and haven't heard this track, we're about to rock your world. This one's called Word by Walker and Royce featuring Vanessa on HotBOI Records.
All I wanna do is follow you, just say the word.
Word, 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 word.
Follow you, just say the word.
Word, 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 word.
When I heard it, I was scared of it.
You were scared?
Yeah, I was scared of it. The first time I heard it, it was really worrisome to me.
That's not what I thought you were gonna say.
Well, you see, the thing about it was I was an independent, smaller label. It's just me coming up with ideas, right? So when an artist the size of Walker and Royce had sent me such a big tune, I was really scared of fucking it up and really scared if I put it out, it wouldn't get the shine that it could have gotten on like Dirty Bird or one of the bigger labels. And essentially what happened was like Barkley wasn't really into the record that much initially. It took a while for it to grow on him, I think, but he wasn't really, into the record. And Walker and Royce, they fucked with my label. They fucked with me. We were friends forever, I've been friends.
Right.
They were playing my very first parties, back in the day when they were on, Moda Black and shit. I signed one of their first records on my very first label, like 10 years ago, Night Supply. So we'd been friends for a long time, and they sent me the tune, and I was I was, I heard it and I was like, man, this probably gonna be a number one, probably. But I told him that I was scared to sign it because if I fuck up something that big, that could be that big for their career, it could be, something that I would feel really guilty about. So it was intimidating to me to sign a record that big. And so when they were kind of insistent on it, I had to kind of put my thinking cap on and figure out exactly how I was going to do everything I could to make sure I didn't fuck it up. Because there was already like articles on Reddit and shit asking about the record. Like Chris Lake had already played it. People were like, "Where's this record?" They don't even know I got it. They don't know. I play the record. I play the record, and it's like, wait, so big, so unique, and with Vanessa's vocal debut was so like kitschy, and like it's such a well crafted, beautiful song.
Yeah.
And so impactful, on the dance floor, just impact. I feel like everybody in America knows that record. I feel like it's insane. But
for sure.
How I was able to, like, I had to put my thinking cap on. I was like, all right, I'm gonna come up with a marketing plan for this record and I'm gonna spike the fuck out of this thing. And we're gonna go number one on Beatport because I got a game plan. So I put together this game plan that worked with like the merch. And I was like, well, if I spend and make really expensive merch that's like no fucking around merch, right? I'll spend the $38 on the t-shirt to make the t-shirt the best t-shirt in the game. We'll spend the $4,000 and I'll put that into the marketing budget on this record, because if it goes number one, the label will get the money back, and so it'll be all right. But if it doesn't go number one, so fucking what? People are gonna get the coolest shirt ever, and that record's gonna be big. So, or at least a staple of the label. And so when I got I kind of got the game plan together. I made 100 of these shirts. I spent the $4,000 on the merch, and I let them post it. If they bought and pre-ordered the record at the same time on the same day before it came out, the first 100 people to do it would be able to get the t-shirt, and we'd figure out what their sizes were and we're going to mail it out to them.
Yeah.
And so they only spend $1, but they got this very rare t-shirt, and our merch was already really sought after to begin with, because we'd already kind of built that reputation for the merchandise. So when they posted that shit, and then we all posted it, first 100 people to buy it gets a word shirt, all these sales spiked on Beatport way before on the pre-order, before it came out.
Wow.
So out of nowhere, there was like 1,000 orders or some shit for this record.
Holy shit.
Which was like putting us on the same level as like the big Defected records and the big records at the time on the store. And that wasn't including when it goes public and is actually on sale, you get all those records, right? So we had this kind of like this super saiyan like way of getting everybody in Denver was trying to get it, and all these people at the parties are trying to get it.
Yeah,
the shirt was fire because the logo was fire, because the artwork is fire. Our artwork was always the best. I always worked with the best artists. The Wei Chen, Jerry is one of the best people on earth, man. So fucking talented. I mean, all the artists I worked with were just top notch. So anyway, we were able to kind of like super spike this record that we already kind of knew was going to be a big record, but no one really had ever heard of HotBOI. Defected hadn't heard of HotBOI, So I remember when the record goes up, and all of a sudden the first day it's like 17 overall, and I'm like, whoa, we broke not just like, Beatport is a funny thing. Like they'll have like, you see every local DJ in the world number one on releases, but releases are just what happens in the geo-tagged area,
right?
That whatever. So it's not like the actual top 100, and it's not right. Yeah, and it's not top 100 on the actual genre either. It's just, that's why people have like a number 2 overall on releases, and then 2 days later it's gone.
Yeah.
And so like when we hit number 17 overall the first day, I was looking at my partner and I was like, bro, like I think maybe it might have worked, maybe. Yes. But we weren't sure because the things refresh and go so in the next 24 hours. All of a sudden at 6 a.m. I get a phone call from my partner. He's like, holy shit. Like what? He's like, dude, we did it. It's number 1 in the world. Like it hit number 1 overall in like 27 hours or some shit. And I was just like mind blown. Like we were popping bottles, we were celebrating. Kind of tricked the system,
Yes.
And it really kind of put, was obviously I think a very impactful record for Walker and Royce, and I had just a lot of relief on my end that I didn't fuck up their career, right? So
you did it, man.
I think awesome. I think it definitely was a very symbiotic relationship, and I still to this day have a very close relationship with those guys, and I work with them on every level that I can on the promotion side, and helping build their profile. So
wow,
it is really cool to see that all happen, but it was definitely like I said, a couple of good ideas, got very lucky, and they just kind of worked out. So really grateful that it did, but it definitely kind of took the trajectory of HotBOI and put it on a different level. I don't know if that record hadn't gotten so big and the merch hadn't gotten so big that we wouldn't have been able to, we wouldn't be able to sell out all the shows that we were playing as like the record label. So, shout out to Walker and Royce for writing relentless banger after banger. They're just prolific producers. But also, it takes a lot of, guts to go out on a limb and, work with a small little independent label, so they trusted me with the record, and, as scary or as intimidating as it was, got really fortunate. And shout out to Chris Lake though, too. Like, before it came out, we did a deal. Like he hit me up, we were playing a Holy Ship or something.
Yeah.
And he come up to me and was like, I really like that record. Why don't we do it together kind of thing? So Black Book actually has 25% of that record. And me and Chris Lake is the very first like co-release of a record between labels or whatever. And Chris technically signed a quarter of it. And that was really, I think, also important because his career is just this rocket ship into space
insane.
Right now, forever. And, having his support on a record like that in front of thousands of people week after week after week was also like something that really kind of gave the record more life than just after it came out. Because I think it was number one for like 3 weeks or a month or something. But after that, 6 months later, Chris Lake is still playing it in front of 12,000 people or 20,000 people or something. So
he still plays it, dude.
Yeah, it's like really, really cool to see. And he deserves a lot of credit for that record too. I basically, also essentially try to remove myself from the equation as much as I can, make sure things succeed, Chris wants the record. I think, that definitely sets them up for the best chance for success. So, more the merrier on everything. But yeah, that record, I think, really helped the label and really helped the trajectory of kind of the footprint in America.
Amazing, brother. Congratulations on that. That's the last release outside of the remixes. When's the next HotBOI track coming out? You got anything in the works?
Well, I really like, it was really weird, like with, especially like the Black Lives Movement, the BLM movement and stuff. There was so much stuff socially that was happening at the time in 2020, 2020, just in general.
Yeah.
That it was really like, it just kind of like, how do I put it? I just was very uninspired to try to promote music. I felt like music was secondary. There were more important issues going on in society just in general. So when the pandemic had kind of, well, I guess we got out of lockdown or ended, or I don't know, so we're still in it. I don't know, whatever.
Yeah, I don't know either.
When everything kind of bounced back, it was really kind of important to me to just stay in Denver as much as possible and make sure that the city bounced back strong and the scene came back like in like a very ethical way, or at least my idea of what ethical looks like.
Yeah.
Because obviously I do a tremendous amount of shows and have a pretty big role in electronic music here in Denver. And so it was just really important that I stick around and not just like, okay, label's back on, I'm making music, I'm touring, I'm gone all the time, because I really wanted to be here during the kind of the transformation of what the new scene and the new, world was going to look like after we were finally able to gather. So I've been really laying low. I've been finally in the studio a lot more in the past like couple months, but it took me, we opened back up in June, and the company that I work with, we had 235 employees before the pandemic had hit. And 4 days before we were told that we could open, we had 8, so tremendous amount of work to try and get the engine back up and, things sustainable and work on the new projects and all these other things that I got going on around me right now. So it's like, I've been kind of just focusing on being a promoter for the past like year or so. in the background working on music again, and we're launching HotBOI again in August. So first release is these kids sent me a record that just blew me away. Is this kid named from Detroit named Botez, and this kid from New York named Ken Kelly. They got this little collab record that they sent me that I just think is tip top. So that's gonna be the first release on the label, and we're gonna launch that in August. That's going to come with a merch drop. And, I think that I'm hoping to have my EP at least done by September, October. And then depending on where that goes, hopefully start touring again in like Q4 now that the ships are not wobbling too much back home.
Yeah, for sure, man. That's awesome, bro. And you've said so many things that I feel like there's things that we could expand upon, but I love that you committed so hard to your city and bringing it back. I really do respect that, as someone that tries to do that in Chicago. So mad love and respect, bro, for real.
Oh, thank you, man. Yeah, no, you got to come. Well, you're coming out in a couple of weeks, so we'll be celebrating.
Absolutely. We will, man. We will. Okay. So I do want to ask you one last question, and you've touched upon it a few times, and it's kind of the state of the music industry right now, with someone like you who has seen the rise in the Denver scene in the US. I mean, the global market of dance music is obviously massive. Fisher, Chris Lake, Sonny Fodera, Green Velvet, John Summit, Nora En Pure, they are bigger than ever. I mean, it's insane, right? Going on world tours, main stages at festivals. I guess my simple question to you is why do you think that is? Why are they so popular? What has changed with music? Why house music has made it to the main stages?
Well, I think house music in general started becoming more popular when pop music started trying to do house music.
True.
I still think that the way people consume music is, unfortunately, especially nowadays, is very algorithmic and very gate-kept still. So when the majors want to get behind something and make something big, they get to do that because it's all part of the machine. So when I think that house music in general is finally getting a lot more acceptance because of the majors kind of latching on to this culture, but I also think that, you look at every one of those artists that you listed, and every single one of those artists worked their ass off together.
Yeah, right. They've been in the game. It's like, finally.
Yeah. So, it's just kudos to them and congrats, in every way. But when it comes to like house music in general becoming a lot more mainstream, I think we can pretty much credit that to the majors finally fucking with house music.
Yeah.
I think it took a while for that to kind of happen in America, but we're getting to the point where, that shit, if you think about it, like in the UK, you got like Radio 1, and, that's like the mecca when it comes to radio for like dance music, right? And the bigger Radio 1 gets and the more like big pop records that they push over at Radio, the more underground stuff can resist, right? The more left field stuff can say, oh, fuck Radio 1. I'm playing this little warehouse over here. We're doing weird bongo music or something. So like just because I believe everything upstreams. And so because of that, like, I think, now with Spotify and, the major labels really kind of focusing on dance music and pushing it on their playlists and creating a space where people can access it and find it, I think you're going to see, I don't think there's anything slowing down like electronic dance music in America. I think it's just going to keep getting bigger and bigger. You think about, it's funny, the biggest electronic artist in the world, say, I don't know. I mean, outside of Daft Punk, because I think they're in a different level.
Yeah.
They're Kanye level or something.
Right.
But look at like, I don't know, let's just say Chris Lake, right? Chris Lake and Fisher, massive, right? They're selling big shows out. Probably they're at the top of their game right now, and they're continuing to rise. Like they're definitely like, from a commercial standpoint or whatever, they're blowing up into that mainstream world. Like people know your 55-year-old dad knows Chris Lake records.
That's true. It's fucked
that
up.
Shit
crazy,
is like they're playing that shit like it's jock jams at the you know what I mean? So it's like it's the music has gotten bigger and bigger and bigger. Like it's very accessible. But even Chris Lake is still not what these country music stars pull ticket sales wise. That some of these guys will come through and do 150,000 tickets on 2 nights, and that's just goes to show you how much the rest of the country likes I mean, the biggest EDM acts that we have, Skrillex or I don't know, whoever you want to put on whatever pedestal, they're still like underground compared to the bigger piece of the pie where it comes to what the rest of America consumes as music. So that just goes to show you how much room for growth there is. And I don't think there's anything stopping house or EDM or techno or I mean, I don't think there's anything stopping dance music in America. I think it just has a tremendous amount more room to grow. That's what it looks like to me.
Absolutely. And you do see these collaborations happening a lot more. You mentioned country music. Diplo, of course, did basically a whole country album, which I actually thought was pretty tasteful. I thought it was good. And you look at somebody like Axwell and Chami, who helped produce Lady Gaga's album, right? Like everyone's kind of recognizing where their talent and opportunity is. And that's when, again, I want to just like bring up the collaboration between artists, massive and small. Like I love what you said, like the next Chris Lake is 17 years old making beats. And
he is, I'm sure. She is, I'm sure. They are.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
They are. Like I just gotta go find them and put them on stage.
I love that, man. That's a great perspective, and I couldn't agree more with you. And I mean, just to wrap it all up, like it's just such a great time to be in dance music and in our positions, and especially as a fan. I think there's a revival going on, if you want to call it that. And it's just very exciting, and it's the summer, and we all hope to be on the other side. And it's just like, I don't know, I'm happy, man. What else can I say? Right.
Yeah, me too, man. I've been loving music more and more lately. And I think for a while I was hating it during the pandemic. I was mad at it. And now it's a good time to explore and go enjoy new shit. It's been awesome.
Live your life, people. All right, brother. What's the last thing you can tell us about what's coming up? You did mention some things. Anything on the hopper right now you want to mention?
Oh man. Just thanks for having me, and super grateful that we were able to do this. And yeah, I'm looking forward to bringing back HotBOI, and really looking forward to putting out music again. So hopefully by the end of the year, things will be back on track.
Let's go, brother. I'm so excited to see you in a few weeks. And just know, once again, Chicago loves you. That's a fucking fact.
Got to get back out there. I know. I gotta get these records out and go on tour, and we'll throw some boat parties in January.
Let's go. Oh yeah. Yeah. All right. I don't know if anyone's gonna show up, but I'll do my best to help promote.
Sounds good.
Brennan, it's nice to meet you, brother. Thanks again for making the time.
Absolutely, man. Looking forward to seeing you in a couple weeks.
Sounds good. Have a good night. Man, do I love Sherm in the booth. Oh, hey, I think you do too. Hope you enjoyed that piece of content. If you're looking for more, make sure to my YouTube channel and hit that subscribe button and turn on all notifications so you don't miss any upcoming Sherm in the Booth interviews, live sets, new music, exclusive artist interviews, Sherm's Word, sub-pack reviews, and more. This is your one-stop shop for everything entertainment. Cheers.